Once I have all of these things dialed, I have my master bus chain that I use. I would usually turn off my limiter. I would usually turn off my clipper as well, and I would leave the slide compressor. This is what I decided to use for this specific track. I really like the overall sound of this compressor. I think it's very versatile, and you can definitely dial from nickel to steel. Still gives you a little bit more of a grungy and very sort of analog-ish type of sound. Nickel is more pristine, more clear, and because it was so saturated with information, I decided to go for the more clear sound. I usually do my master bus in dual mono. I do it in order to create more dynamic sort of response where things are not being squashed, whether it's left or right. So left and right channel can actually work separately and create separate ducking or compression. This, I hardly use it. Nothing actually moves here. But you can definitely hear the difference. I use this for more precise EQing. I find it very useful. This chain, I kind of, I stole it from, not stole it, I actually paid for my course with Andrew Sheps, which was great. And this is just something that I use. Sometimes I use the Dangerous Master and EQ. Sometimes I use this module. I find it extremely good sounding, and it definitely adds a lot. Like if you so I find it so like low information and reaching, and I'm in the Neve mode here, and it just does something that glues together the low mids. Thank you, Stephen Slade. This stuff sounds amazing. Now this is also one of Andrew Sheps' hidden tools, which I'm revealing here. This is an amazing tape machine plugin, and without getting too technical, it just sounds really fat. And let's listen to it with and without it. Yeah, I find it extremely rich and creamy, and I just love it. It just saturates things and somehow glues elements of the mix together. This is pretty much a must tool. As soon as it came out, I started using it. It's a multi-bend compressor, but it's different. It's more musical, I would say, and you can really dial in certain parameters, and you can make it very subtle. And I really like the way it sounds. I'm not a huge fan of multi-band compressors. I find them a little bit tricky. They affect the sound, and on the crossover points, you start hearing phasing issues. But with this specific one, I usually keep those without them crossing, and I find it extremely surgical and extremely precise. So it just tames the sound, it just tames those peaks, and it just really creates that sort of finishing polish that we're so used to listening on the radio, and that's why I really like this. And then we get into more heavy things. This is the chain that I mostly use for pop stuff that needs to be loud, stuff that has a lot of transient. This can change. This is what I found useful for this specific song. Lately I started using clippers, and I find them extremely useful when they work together with limiters, and you don't have to push your limiter so hard. I find it extremely useful. So let's just listen to what clipper does. So again, it's an amazing plugin, and it makes the drums punchier. Again, you have two different modes of clipping, one hard clipping and another one soft clipping. Again, without getting into technical things here, where you can push the actual clipper, you have to be really careful because there is definitely a threshold. Which is like once you cross it, you can start things getting really out of hand and creating artifacts that you don't want to have in your song. And here it's just the output, and I would usually keep it at -2, -1 before it hits 0. And obviously here you have the distortion, so you just have to be careful with this. And then so again, this is obviously doesn't need any introduction, Pro L2, and this plugin I usually don't even use all the way to the point where I actually reach my final stages of mixing, where pretty much everything works together, where the vocals sit in tight and everything is great. So I don't really turn it on unless I'm getting to the very last stage of mixing / mastering, and I find the setting perfect. Also, I put it after the clipper because the clipper it just makes me push my limiter less. So here, if you listen to it, that's definitely, obviously makes it louder, but at the same time, it doesn't really pump too hard. I don't like going any lower than 5 dB reduction anyway, and as you can see, the attack is super slow, the release is relatively fast. That's how I like it. I don't want to hear the limiter. I just, if anything, I just want maybe the levels to go up. I don't really like the coloration of limiters. This one makes things a little bit darker, but in this case, it works. I don't like oversampling. I don't like true peak limiting. It makes things sound a little bit different. So all of this, I keep it off. Also, dithering. I have dither on my Oxford limiter, so here I keep it turned off. Also, I don't like pushing it all the way to 0, so I leave just a little bit headroom, -0.2. And if you listen to what it does, so this is pretty much the sound of the final mix. And I hope that it made sense to you, the things that I've said before, which have to do with actually prepping the session and making the right decision, whether we want certain things to be processed, bounced, and sent to a mix engineer, whether we want certain groups already bounced into stereo tracks, whether we want the mix engineer to have all the freedom and therefore separating and getting every single element separately. And then furthermore, for the mixing engineer at the mixing stage to really tap into the vision of the producer, to hear all the process sounds and to hear the entire track by hitting play and tapping into the vision of the producer rather than creating your own sound that may not fit the producer's vision. So I hope that, along with technical details of routing and maybe processing, overall processing as well as individual processing on the inserts, I hope that this video was helpful. In the next video, in the next instructional video, maybe I'll touch a little bit on my parallel compressing techniques and maybe other certain things that I use for in my template. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and until the next time.